What is going on, everybody? It's Primitive here, and today we are back with another archetype breakdown. Today we are going to be going over X-Antibody. I'm just going to let you know ahead of the time that this is going to be a bit shorter compared to the other ones that we got through. If we look at the spreadsheet here, it is much shorter than most of the other spreadsheets here because a lot of the decks are playing very, very similar things. So we're only going to go over a couple decks here, but as always, in the comments down below, I'm going to have linked this spreadsheet for you, so you're going to be able to check out the ratios that everything is played at most commonly, and then the list that I'm going through on the Google Docs here, so you can go ahead and check them out further if you would like to. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into these lists. Alright, so the first list that we're going to be looking at is going to be the one that plays the Heist at the Card Market Regional. Starting off with the Digitama, we have the 4 Doraemon. I think this is going to be fairly standard. I don't really see why you'd want to play any other egg. You could play a 1-of for a 5th egg, which I'm sure we'll see some decks doing. You probably go with the Kyokyomon, I would assume, but yeah, 4 Doraemon is going to be the play here. Now, getting on into the rookies, we have the 4 Dorumon and the 4 Ryudomon, which are going to be fairly staple, as well as the Tsunarizumon. Some lists might not be playing this because of the price of it, or might not be playing it at 4. We'll have to see, but I feel like these 3 are going to be your main rookies that you really want to play. You might see other things like Chumon or Toyagumon get thrown in as well, but I think being able to have these at 4 are going to be the most consistent because you want the aggression and you want the searches, and the inheritables here are all just really good. The champions here are going to be fairly standard as well. The Darugumon and the Ginryumon are fairly strong, and the 2 Grumblemon I do really like myself, being able to have that last little burst effort, so that way if you go ahead and swing 4 or 5 checks, put your opponent down to 0, you can pop Black Memory Boost and go up into the Grumblemon for game, or you can just use it as a way to get up if you are missing one of your other champions. But being able to have the burst is nice. I like playing it at least 2, so that way if you bottom deck it, you can at least still have the consistency of being able to find it later in the game, or if one's in security, you can still find it later in the game. With the ultimates, we're going to have 4 of the Dorugraemon and 4 of the Saryumon. I don't really think you'd want to run any other ultimates here, so this is all that really makes sense. Max this out here. I'm sure this is going to be what probably every list does, just because, like I said, there's not really any other level 5 to play here. These are just so strong, and you don't need to play more than 8. Now, looking at the champions, this is probably where most decks are going to differ. We have the 4 Orumon and the 2 Alphamon, but I know there's a lot of lists playing 3 Orumon. There's a lot of lists playing Dorugoromon. There's lists playing 3 to 4 Alphamon, so I can imagine this is a big difference of where it's going to change in between decks. But here we're just maxing out on the Orumon and then going in with the Alphamon here, so trying to get that Alphamon, put this underneath. But Orumon itself is fine to Digivolve into. Now, looking at the Tamers, we have 4 Yugi and 3 Coda. I imagine you're always going to run 4 Yugi and then either 2 to 4 Coda, depending on how you feel. Coda is very good. Yuji's way better, being able to gain 1, draw 1 when you promote, being able to put sources underneath so you can proc with the Saryumon. This card is just absolutely insane. But Coda is your memory tamer, and a lot of decks like to play memory tamers at 3, but I could see going up to 4 or going down to 2 just because you do have a lot of search and whatnot in your rookies. So you'll be able to get up into the combo that you need no matter what, or at least pretty consistently. So I think 4 and 3 will probably be the most standard, but I could see Coda differing here. Now, looking at the options, they just have 2 Breath of the Gods here. I've seen some lists playing this all the way up to 4, which I do understand because you don't want to get Megadethed or whatever, so it is a very strong card. But I think anywhere from 2 to 4 is nice. I just know a lot of people have been preferring up to 3 or 4. We got this option card, which I'm not even going to pretend like I know how to pronounce this, but I think this one is interesting. The D-Digivolve is nice, but you do get to do a lot with this, be able to D-Digivolve, pop level 4, and put a source underneath, so I do like it. I don't know what I would prefer this at. I actually haven't played against a lot of X-Antibody lists that are playing this card. I know that it is getting more popular with some of these topping lists, so we'll definitely see this around, but this card is definitely interesting. It gives you a lot of different effects for 4 memory, and that's usually pretty good. 2 Black Memory Boost, I agree with this. You want to be able to search out your pieces. There's a lot of consistency in this list, but this also allows you to get extra memory, so you can go up into your Grumblemon for game, or if you don't have your Memory Tamer out yet, you can pop it so that way you're guaranteed to go to 3, so that way you can go into your Alphamon or things like that. So I really like it. I could see this being played up to 3 or 4 as well. I think it's just the memory in this type of deck is pretty important, just because if you do miss your memory tamer and you get choked a lot, it can slow you down. So black memory boost here is going to be able to supplement that. And then just a 1 of tech of the metal cannon, which sure is fine. You get some draw off of this. I don't really necessarily like it or hate it. I understand it. All right, this next list that we're looking at is also from the Card Market Regional. So we'll start off with the Digitama once again with the 4 Doraemon and the 1 Kyokyomon. Again, this is probably the only other egg that you could play. You could play the Pagumon, I guess, but that's not as offensive as a card, and this is a very offensive deck, so being able to have the 1k DP boost is going to be nice. I don't think it's going to be that influential a lot of the time because you can get these megas pretty big anyway, but if you want the 5th egg for the slower matchups, this is probably the way to go. Now looking at the rookies, we got the 4 Doraemon, the 4 Ryudomon here. Going to be fairly standard once again. And then they did choose to play the Toyogumon and Chumon, which I think outside of the Tsunariza are the next most common cards here. So Reboot is nice. That's going to be able to make it so that you can like swing and then you can just reboot on your opponent's turn. So that way they can't swing over you. So it's going to be very good in a lot of matchups. I don't know if it's as necessary. I still think Tsunarizamon is going to be nice because you can just end the game faster with Tsunarizamon, as to where this is a little bit more of a defensive card. But Chumon is very nice. There is going to be a lot of memory gain, lots of other memory boosts, hammer sparks, things like that. So Chumon is going to be nice. Only at 1k DP for all these rookies is going to be kind of rough against yellow, because then you can't really ever hard play a rookie without it just dying for free from either Cody or TK Kari. And then again in the champions, we're going with the 4, 4, and 2 here. So this seems to be the standard right now. As well with the ultimates, we're just going with the 4 Doraemon, the 4 Saryumon. So again, I don't think we're going to see the ultimates differ from any list. The champions definitely could differ, but these ultimates will stay the same. Now looking at the Megas, we have 3 Oryumon, 3 Dorgoromon, and 2 Alphamon here. So cutting 1 here and going up to 3 compared to the last list that we looked at. I do still like Dorgoromon a lot. Dorgoromon can really devastate boards fairly easily, and being able to just get a bunch of free sources underneath is going to be nice. Being able to have high DP while being able to swing 3, 4, 5 checks is also going to be nice. So I'm a big fan of Dorgoromon still. And then of course the Alphamon, you want to be getting this Alphamon Oryu combo. That's how a lot of these things do kind of go down. A lot of these decks want to just kind of OTK with that, so it's definitely going to have 2 Alphamon, 2 to 3 Alphamon in a lot of these lists. Tamers are also the same from the last list with the 4 Yuji and the 3 Coda, so this will probably be the standard. And then the other list had a lot of other option cards. This one's just going straight for Breath of the Gods. We are not playing any memory boosts or any cards that search or anything like that. We're just going, play this out. You do not want to get Mega Death. You can play this before you swing. You can play this after you swing. You can play it to pass turn, all that stuff. So this will be good too, because the security effect is also very powerful. So I think this at 4 is fine. I think missing out on the black memory boost is a little bit of a downside, but you do get to have a better matchup into Imperial, that's for sure. Alright, now we are going to be looking at a list from Japan. So it doesn't look like they gave us the eggs here for this list, but I could assume that they are probably playing the Doraemon once again, but we are going to be having the 4 Ryudomon, the 4 Dorumon once again, and the 4 Tsunariza. So we are back to this here, which I still think is the optimal rookie lineup. That's just very strong. Champions, we got 4 Darugumon, 4 Genryumon, and no Grumblemon. So different from the last list, because the last list was playing those Grumblemons, but no hybrids here. But we can see that there are quite some crazy option choices, so they had to make room somewhere else. But in the ultimates, we got 4 and 4, so nothing differing there. And then the megas, we are just going straight for Alphamon, 4 Oryumon. So we are just going for full Alphamon OTK while also having the Alphamon security effect, so that will be nice. The Tamers is part of what's most interesting to me, because they are not playing Coda. They decided to play Izzy, which is very interesting to me because it does rearrange the cards on top of your deck instead of searching and putting some to the bottom. I don't really know what the advantage to this was, but this was not the only list that played Izzy over Coda, so I think this is an interesting thing to note. I still think that Coda is going to be a better memory tamer, but if you just don't want to search things and just rearrange it, Izzy's there for you. I'm not too sure. Getting into the options, we have a bunch of crazy one-ofs, starting with a Blazing Storm of Metal here. I think this is interesting. You'll have the reboot, so you can give it blocker. So this is mostly just to give things blocker if you don't already have it, but we do have that as an inheritable. So I don't really like this as much. We have the one Brave Metal, which, sure, I think Brave Metal is a fine card. You'll be able to delete stuff. We have the one Gwalt Schwarmer, which, sure, I haven't seen any other list play this. I don't necessarily know if I agree with it, just because you can delete some important stuff, but it doesn't delete any of your ultimates or higher, but it still can be an interesting card to play. And then the one Black Memory Boost, you already know I do enjoy. And then the however you say this card at 3, so a lot of removal here, and then just the random Blazing Storm of Metal. Alright, the last list we are going to go over here. They do have the 4 Doraemon, no 5th egg here, but I have to assume that the other list also was playing it, just because this is just the best egg for sure. Then we're going with my favorite rookie lineup here with the 4, 4, and 4 with the Tsunariza. Champion lineup, we got the 4 Ginryu, the 4 Darugumon, and they actually went up to 3 Grumblemon here, so I can dig that as well. That makes it so you can be a little bit more aggressive early on if you need to cycle, or if you just... This gives you a higher chance of being able to just go like be at 3 with Coda, promote, gain with Yuji, go to 4, and then you can double hybrid after you swing. So it gives you a higher consistency of them. I do like it. Now we got 4 Dorugray, 4 Saryumon, of course, and then this time we're going with the 4 Oryumon, 3 Alphamon. So again, all the way in on this Alphamon OTK, but just not going with the 4 Alphamon, going with 3. I think that's fine. I think 4 and 4 of both when you're only playing 8 is going to be a little bit clunky. Obviously, you can put them underneath as sources, so you won't always have them in your hand, but I don't think you necessarily need to play 8, but I think between 3 and 4, it's going to be generally the same. Then the Tamers were playing 2 Izzy and then 1 Coda. So again, this list choosing to play 2 Izzy, but instead of going over Coda, we are just playing the 1 Coda here and the 4 Yuji. So again, I really don't know how I feel about Izzy over Coda. It seems like there was a phase where we were enjoying Izzy over Coda, but personally, I think Coda is going to be a little bit stronger. I think the being able to search and get things to your hand is going to be more important than rearranging the top, unless you are like really looking for something specific like a Breath of the Gods, which is not in this list as we can see, but it did seem to work out for them there. And getting onto the options, they just have the 3 Black Memory Boost, so I think a lot of the other ones were playing 2, so going up to 3 is nice. A higher consistency. You do play a little bit more into memory blockers here, but being able to get rid of them shouldn't be too big of a deal. And then we got 2 of this option as well, so this is definitely something that was liked a lot in this metagame. Alright, getting on into the spreadsheet here, we can see here with the Digitama that it says 9 out of the 10 decks play. That's because there was that one list that it didn't show the eggs. I have to assume that they were playing the Doraemon. It is going to be the strongest egg. I assume that this is actually going to be 10 out of 10. It's just that with some of these Japanese lists, we actually don't get their eggs, which I've noticed when doing this series. Sometimes just the eggs are not included, so you sometimes just have to infer. But looking at that, none of the other lists played Kyokumon at 4, and only 3 of them played it at 1. This is probably a 10 out of 10. With the rookies, we got 10 out of 10 with the Doraemon and the Ryudamon, and then 8 out of 10 with the Tsunarizamon. 7 of them played it as a 4 of, and 1 of them played it as a 1 of. So I don't know if the 1 of was from just that was the only one that they had, or if they generally thought 1 was the best for that list. But Tsunarizamon is definitely an interesting tech. Then Toyagumon, Chumon, and Chikurimon were all also used, but in just a couple of lists here. Toyagumon was used as a 2 of, and then one deck it was a 3 of. All the Chumon decks played it as 2 of, and then all the 2 Chikurimon decks also played as a 2 of. So I like Chumon more than I like Toyagumon and Chikurimon. Toyagumon is nice, but you already have another reboot card, so I think this is a card that's been used in the past in the deck, which is why I think people kind of default to it. I don't think it's bad, but I think out of these lesser used ones, I like the Chumon more. I think it's going to be more useful more often. Alright, now looking at the champions, of course, Darugumon and Genryumon were used in 10 out of 10 decks. They are fairly good. Interestingly enough, one deck did choose to just play 3 Ginryu, so there was not a 10 out of 10 here. Grumblemon was also played in 8 out of the 10 decks, so very popular. 5 of them played it as a 2 of, and then 3 of them played it as a 3 of. So Grumblemon, very popular. You could imagine that most champion lineups are going to consist of these 3, but there was one list that played 1 Mechanorimon. I have played against an X-Antibody list that was playing Mechanorimon. I don't think it's the craziest. It is kind of good versus early game Imperial Dramon because they can't swing in with jamming, but it does get bottom decked by Pile Dramon unless you have the tie that buffs you on your turn. So none of those lists were playing that tie, so it will just get bottom decked. So it's an interesting tech. I just don't think it's going to be as strong in the metagame right now. I think Mechanorimon isn't in the craziest spot. And we got 10 out of 10 for both of the ultimates here. They were the only 2 that were played, and it makes perfect sense. Now for the Megas, Orumon and Alphamon were played in all 10 decks. Orumon as either a 4 of or a 3 of, as for Alphamon was used at 2 or 3 in every count. 2 1 of Alphamons was interesting to me. I don't know how much I like 1 of Alphamon here, but I think 2, 3, 4 makes a little more sense. 2 and 3, we did see these 2 be the most popular counts. And then for the Doragoromon, it was most popular as a 2 of in the deck, with a couple decks playing it at 3. But like I said, I do like the Doragoromon here. I think that it is a very strong card. It can add some nice removal for you, as well as being able to just be highly aggressive with a huge DP buff. Now, the only level 7 that we saw in any of these decks was 1 Millenniumon, and I don't know exactly what you want Millenniumon for. I don't think you need a level 7 in this list because your Megas level 6s are just so powerful anyway, but did see Millenniumon top, but doesn't seem to be very popular. Alright, looking at the Tamers, we got 10 decks playing the Yuji, of course. One deck did surprisingly play it at just 3, but I think that's fine. You just get so much value off of it that you probably want it at 4. Coda was used in 9 because one of the lists did play Izzy over Coda, but we did see a list that played the 1 Coda, the 2 Izzy. But most commonly, Coda was played as a 3 of, so being able to have this at 4, this at 3, I think is going to be the most common. And then lastly, the option cards here, we can see that Breath of the Gods was surprisingly only used in 3 of the lists. I think this doesn't really make any sense in the Imperial Dramon metagame, but that's where we're at. I think this is going to go up in the near future, no doubt. Black Memory Boost going in 8 of the decks here, most common as a 2 of, but we did have one played at 1, one played at 3, and I really like this card. Metal Cannon was also a very popular tech with 5 decks playing it at 1 and 1 deck playing it at 2, so 6 out of the 10 decks were playing it. I can dig it at 1. You do get some draw off of it, but I don't think it's very game-changing. The option card that shall not be named used in 6 of the decks, 2 of and 4 of the decks, 3 of and 2 of the decks, so very popular card to be used as some removal. It does have a nice security effect, and it's a card that can just give you 3 different effects for 4 memory, so very powerful. 1 Gwalch Swarmer, for whatever reason. I don't think this one's going to really pick up, but did put in some work. It can clear some things off, but I don't think it's as powerful in this metagame. 2 with Brave Metal. I think Brave Metal is a decent removal card, so this isn't really that bad or that surprising to me. Blazing Storm of Metal, I think, is bad. I wouldn't play it. I don't think it's that good, really. And then Ultimate Flare. Ultimate Flare is just one of the best, if not maybe the best, black removal option card, so I could always see Ultimate Flare coming in. I don't think it's as crazy in this metagame because the way DNA Digivolving works and just general some of the decks in the metagame right now, Ultimate Flare doesn't really hit that hard, but this is a card that I think will probably be around forever unless it gets hit just because of what it does, so yeah, makes sense. But either way, that is going to be today's breakdown. It is a little bit shorter than the other ones, but that's just because this list did not vary very much compared to some of the other lists. Some of them were just very, very similar. We can see a lot of cards being played in 10 out of the 10 decks at the same ratios, and so it is a deck that I think going into next format will probably vary a lot more than it does right now, but this, from looking through it for myself here, this seems like a fairly solved archetype. You really only have a couple choices here, in like your rookies and your champions and your ultimates. They're all kind of already sealed up. It's just what ratios are you going to put your megas, your tamers, and your options. So But with that being said, I hope you enjoyed. I will be bringing you the other ones soon. I've had a lot of people request Black War Greymon, so I'm going to try to get that to you all here. It's just that there's not as many lists to look at, but once I can get some more lists, we'll definitely go over Black War Greymon. But let me know what other archetypes you'd like me to go over. But with that being said, I will catch you all next time. Peace out.